you know, with the CPA?
I haven't run across a lot of barriers in licensing families. There have been some spaces that they want to have children out of home care in, but sometimes they can be like a lower level of the home with a window that's too small for egress, which would go against number 2 on here. But usually, yeah, so there are some restrictions there more than probably sharing. There are some random rooms, obviously, in larger houses that go through another bedroom or something, but typically the main barrier more has to do with the egress to the outside of the windows, I've noticed.
Okay. And I believe that is attached to probably the fire codes.
Yes, it is. A fireman has to be able to fit through with all of his equipment on.
Right. So that number 2 of this WAC, you know, we cannot change it. Number 2.
I wouldn't want you to either, probably.
Yeah, yeah. What about using other rooms other than a bedroom? You guys have any feelings about that?
I think that has helped some people get licensed. If you have like an older house, not all the rooms have closets. So it might be like an office space with a door that just might not have a traditional closet. So the homes will get like an armoire or storage space in lieu of a closet. So the room could be licensed. I think it's not as common, but it does come up.
Good point. You brought up a closet, and I've heard that said multiple times. Where is it written that there has to be a closet to make it a bedroom?
Good question.
That is a very good question. I was just reading that too. I was like, huh. I was always told by LD that we had to have a closet.
I guess I'm going to throw it out there. It's like, what is the definition of a bedroom?
I do know with building codes, or like if you're going to list your house, a room is not considered a bedroom unless it has a closet.
So the closet is what identifies it as a bedroom, Carla?
That's what if you're selling your house, that's the only way you can count it as a bedroom in the home, is it has to have a closet.
For resale?
Yeah. But
So
I mean, there's
maybe
other ways to put closets in the bedrooms. So, I mean, I put a armoire in and attached it to the wall and put some shelves. I mean, I've got a closet. It's just not a built-in closet.
So maybe starting this section with a clear definition of a bedroom being tied to building code and a note for what that, building code number to look up would help.
Is the building code consistent across Washington state, or does it vary by county?
So Rachel, you gotta speak up a little bit.
Oh, I was just curious. I know when I've been licensing in different regions, the building codes are different in different counties in Washington. So that might be kind of hard to define. You'd have to, as a licensor, have to go through the codes for that specific county for every time, which could be tricky and a bit cumbersome.
But also, would you really want to prohibit them from using a room as a bedroom as long as they have somewhere for the child to store their belongings?
Right.
And that's my thought too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think you would want to prohibit them from taking a child or multiple children into a room just because it doesn't have a built-in closet.
And we had some homes that had like older, like at the top of the stairs, there was a room up there that had a doorway but no door. So the definition of a door has come up, I know, in licensing. If it can be like a pocket door, if it's like those accordion doors counts, does a curtain enough if it covers the whole thing? What is considered privacy per se? And I think that can come into play if there's other bedrooms up there. Yeah, the age of the kids, there's a lot of different pieces to that. But I know that's come up a few times. How does privacy defined in that?
Okay. Amelia, do you have anything to add? So the description, on the internet, a bedroom is a room where people sleep. It mainly has a bed and drawers or other storage for clothes. Which it may be a closet or a nightstand. So I thought that was interesting. It doesn't say it has to be a closet where it's stored. It just said other storage for, storage for clothes.
And that would fit into what I've seen done previously, as
Okay.
long as there's like an armoire or somewhere to, put clothes, dressers, all that stuff.
This is Deborah. I'm really sorry. I am doing this through my phone and I cannot figure out how to get into the chat. I'm a foster mom. I can't remember what else you've asked that I just had to cut in. I finally found a place that says I can unmute my phone. I usually do it from my laptop, so I apologize. I don't know how to get into the chat part. So I agree with all the ideas of why would we deny somebody that wants to love and protect a child because they don't have a built-in closet. I think, and to the point of county by county and building codes, et cetera. But I know for listing a house, yes, it does have to have a built-in closet to be considered a bedroom, but we're not selling houses, we're loving kids. So I just think having the appropriate place for storing their stuff is enough, to call it a bedroom and have it be there without getting into real nitty gritty built-ins and all of that. Just my opinion.
Well, that's what we want to hear, Deborah.
I'm from Jersey. You will get my opinion.
I love that. Are you a caregiver?
I am. I've fostered for almost 8 years.
In what region do you live in, Deborah?
Clark County, Vancouver, Washington.
Oh,
I think
so
it's
you're-
region 6.
Yep. And give me your email and then I'm just gonna put it in the chat here so we can track it.
Perfect. I might figure it out before the end how to get in it, but it's DEB. I'll give it to you phonetic, like David, Edward, Brian, Paul, Ocean, Lincoln, Edward, Nora at hotmail.com.
It's a really big part of my creative process. I'd love to share that with you. And the event, October 22nd in New York City.
All right, there we go.
BigForColorVIP.com to learn.
Felix, you want to talk about what you put in?
Oh yeah, I just noticed that there was people popping on, so I just wanted those guiding principles to be in the chat, so people can review them as people hop on.
Thank you.
So far, is there anything as people are reading that is missing from this WAC that you feel we need to address? Or is there anything else people would like to highlight before we scroll further down?
My only thought is this is a WAC for bedrooms, which makes sense. But in here on number 8, it talks about clean clothing appropriate for the age and storage for possessions. To me, that would be clean bedding, because it's just, unless this WAC is more broad than I anticipated it being. Because clothing appropriate for age is more of a services for 2 children versus a bedroom requirement. If that makes sense, I don't know.
No,
Yes,
it does.
thank you for highlighting. We'll make sure to make note. So am I hearing you right that you're saying that maybe this would belong better in a different WAC?
Number 8, yeah. The storage would, I guess, could go here because it's talking about, storage of bedrooms. So you must have storage for children's belongings. That makes sense in here. But I don't know.
Great point, Rachel. Thank you.
So how do y'all feel about spelling out that you can't have an office or playroom or laundry room or other common areas as a bedroom? Do you have thoughts on that?
I wouldn't want it in there per se, because I know some people will have like a work from home one day a week, so they have a desk in a room, and then if they have a child for respite or something like that, the child wouldn't then be able to use a joint room.
Okay.
Long-term placements are different, right? The child needs their own space with nothing else in it. But for short-term placements, I think using different spaces or shared spaces, I've seen that happen. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
It's hard to just automatically say all offices are 100% out.
oh, no, my office reverts to a bedroom when I get company, so there you go.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
I
Office.
was gonna say the same. I don't work from home, but I have a desk and a computer in my little's room that maybe I work 4 or 5 hours a month on the computer, paying bills, et cetera. I'd hate to lose that whole room
Yeah.
because my desk and computer's in there.
I think the same, I mean, what do y'all think about a playroom? Other than it might be very distracting for a kid.
Aren't bedrooms playrooms anyway sometimes? Like,
Exactly, okay.
I'm so hello. I was just gonna say
Hi,
I'm
Amina.
surprised that hi. I was DCYF, kids manager for many years before becoming a foster parent.
Okay,
And I saw in so many homes the garage being used as a bedroom. And so why is that not listed here? I mean, I would prefer any of these rooms to a garage. Doesn't matter how you decorate it. A garage is a garage. And I myself placed kids in homes where I knew the garage was gonna be their bedroom.
okay.
So why is the garage not listed here? Are you guys not aware that many people use their garages as bedrooms?
Well, we can add it if the group, when we get to negotiations, it feels like a garage should be there. But I've seen many garages that have converted into bedrooms, livable space, as long as it has the egress windows for fire safety. But it's definitely a conversation to have.
I think having it in there at all just opens wiggle room for loopholes. And when we're defining what a bedroom needs to be, it doesn't make sense to then call out what it's not.
Okay.
So I would vote on getting rid of 3 altogether and only addressing what it needs to be, not what it can be.
Okay,
I agree
Good
with
point.
that. Yeah, it's a very
Good
good
point.
because we want to be positive, strength-based, right? If we're doing our strength-based approach, then it's what we want in the minimum requirements of a bedroom are.
so we don't want to throw up barriers. And making
Unnecessarily, yeah.
is what too specific is what I kind of may be hearing from everybody. I have another question, and as a regional licensor, especially with condensed housing, is lots of times on a very narrow tall house, you'll have, living space, kitchen, and the bedrooms are usually separated by that middle living space. Have any of you come up against that? Do you have thoughts around that? It just says, must be on the same floor or within easy hearing distance and access to our children under 6 of age are sleeping.
I honestly think we should be taking out the on the same floor. It creates a lot of barriers and confusion. If we're already addressing the issue by saying within easy hearing distance and access, like that feels like it should be enough for somebody to then use their judgment.
I agree.
Because I've definitely heard that be an issue over and over and over again as far as people's interpretation and how strict that as a restriction versus a judgment for being able to hear.
Yeah, it can be really subjective what the hearing distance is for different people. I know some people, like when I've licensed homes before, I'll go to the different floor and they're on the other floor and I'll be like, hey, talk, can I hear you? Like, what's that look like? So it's kind of tricky to have. Yeah, but then I've been in homes, I've licensed homes who are huge and they're on the same floor and opposite wings of the house and you couldn't hear them anyway. So it's kind of,
But they're on the same floor.
yes. So it can be, I don't think it's the floor that's the safety issue. I think it's the hearing distance that is the safety issue to me.
So I'm sorry, I'm taking notes and I'm not, so are we saying that is the suggestion to take out both of those things? Or is it just that you guys are saying that can you help me understand that, Marge? Maybe you can help me.
What I
said.
heard, some of the people say is takeout must be on the same floor. So you're addressing safety by, access and being able to hear. And does that necessarily mean that you have to be on the same floor? Okay. If I didn't summarize that right, can you guys chime in and let me know or let us know? Or Felix, did you hear something else? Something different?
No, I agree with you, Marge, and whoever spoke up. I think same thing, different words.
Okay, thanks you guys.
Amina, can you put your contact information as a caregiver in the chat, please? Are you licensed with the state or CPA, and what region you live in? We're trying to track everybody who's attending.
Oh gosh, I don't remember what region I am in.
What county do you live in?
I'm in Pierce County,
Pierce County, so you're in Region 5.
Region 5. It used to be Region 3.
Okay, we've changed a lot.
Okay.
We are Region 5 now. Are you our Region 5?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, Felix, I think it's 6:30. Let's move on to the next SWAC.
All right, so here, again, federal requirements or federal standards are in purple, and then suggested language is in green. Again, we want to.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I know we have a short amount of time, but could we do a quick read through of the bottom half of that? I didn't see that part at all.
I noticed on number 11, you added in writing for the healthcare provider. We also noticed best practice was doing that for number 13 too. If you're going to swaddle over the age of 2 months, that it had to be in writing from a doctor as well, versus just a doctor, someone telling them. I don't know if you want to add that or not. It's just something that I worked a lot with medically fragile babies, and a lot of times the doctors would say that, and it kind of protected the foster parents to have it in writing.
My sense is, Rachel, that got added to this WAC historically, the swaddling, because I thought it wasn't allowed at all.
They changed the WAC during the last WAC update. They used to not be in there, and then they
Right.
changed it to under 2 months, which at CCS we had a lot of medical babies, so we had to, in writing from the provider for kids who needed that. They added the wedges too in writing. They did a lot to the infant, I think, feel like in the last updates.
Thank you for going back.
No, Shayla, I kind of miss this too. How do y'all feel about the swaddling of infants? Felix, you have two little babies. How long did you, I don't know how long you swaddle a baby.
I swaddled well past 2 months. I had an exposed baby and it was extremely helpful for them sleep-wise. I did have to get the written permission, but it wasn't difficult to obtain. My pediatrician and I had no idea where the 2 month rule came from, and neither one of us, we thought it was fairly arbitrary, but it wasn't really
So-
a barrier because I had a good pediatrician to work with.
Marge, I can tell you, we just looked at this in group care, and that recommendation comes from the safe sleep recommendations
Oh.
from the Pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that may have been a recent change, but like at the time, a couple of years ago when we talked about this, it was developmental based. Once they were rolling over, it was a problem. So that has been, they've for some reason changed that to a specific age and not a development marker.
I think they're saying typically they're rolling over by the age of 2 months. You're right, it still is tied to when they're rolling over, but yeah, I think they're going with, just typically this loose sort of safe sleep guidelines is where they're landing for
Gotcha.
that recommendation.
Thank you.
Felix, you want to talk a little bit about what you put in the chat?
Yeah, I'll continue to throw in guiding principles every once in a while, but we had included this really to tackle SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. There was a big campaign, I think about starting around 10 years ago, where CPS workers were also reviewing this with anyone they came in contact. We do it with our caregivers, so this shouldn't be necessarily new information. But this is where this language is coming from. It's coming from just safe sleep practices and preventing SIDS.
Thank you.
That being said, is there anything that people feel that is missing in this section of the WAC?
One quick question. I can't think of what they're called, but I know my kids use them and I've known other foster parents have used them. Those sleep sacks, are those allowable? I don't see that in any of the language.
I believe they are allowed.
They are allowed because they don't bunch up around the neck. They have the tank top and then they go to the bottom and it's considered like one layer. Last I had heard. You probably know more than me do.
That's a good question, though. Maybe what the NRM, we can just do a little research on sleep sacks.
They're approved. I'll try to find the
Yeah.
guidelines and throw it into the chat. DCY have already determined what's allowed and what's not allowed. I'll try to
Okay.
find that resource.
Okay, thank you. I find the language around weighted blankets interesting. So you have to get upon the advice and training from a licensed healthcare provider.
My only thought is they don't talk about weighted vests in here at all.
Weighted vests.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. So kids may sleep with a weighted vest on.
No, I wasn't thinking for, I guess you're right. This is sleep. Never mind.
That's okay.
For that. I was just thinking like, yeah, the weight. So
I think if you're getting training from a healthcare licensed professional on the use of a weighted blanket, wouldn't they already follow A through E? Or is that just an assumption on my part?
no, I've seen other doctors require or say that a weighted blanket could be more than 10%.
Okay,
Medical providers don't always follow the 10%.
okay. Are people ready to move on? All right, Eva, should we roll to our next whack? And what you're seeing here, everybody, this is the entire whack. So what are the requirements for sharing bedrooms?
And I do want to point out, I did make a mistake on highlighting purple in here. This WAC actually does not have any federal standards. These are all language that DCYF decided on.
Okay, so number
And then-
3 should be green.
I highlighted them for discussion points.
Okay.
I messed up on my color coding here.
Felix, do you want me to change the purple to a different color?
Yes, please.
What color should it be?
You-
Green?
It could even be black.
Okay.
Yeah. However, anything in green was recommended by foster parents. And I'm not saying that we need to accept that language, but it might be a topic of discussion.
Line 5, why is the second part of the sentence there? Like, I'm just curious about what prompted us to have a caveat instead of just children under 2 may share a bedroom with an adult. Approved by a caseworker seems pretty vague.
Yeah, I don't have the exact reasoning why, but two seems kind of odd to me, but I know that we do allow a bedroom share. Like we don't question bedroom sharing up until 1 year old.
Until 2. It
Yeah.
changed about
Did it
2 years, a year and a half
Okay.
ago to up until 2, and that's why I'm wondering why the second part of that sentence is there.
Mhm.
If it's
I feel like that second part got added when they added up to 2. When it was 0 to 1, there was no additional language there needed for approval. But then when they added the 1 to 2, that's when you need additional approvals and they have to do best interest. I feel like that could be explained better. 0 to 1, you don't need permission, and kids between the ages of 1 to 2, it's like I don't even think it's in writing, it's just a conversation, right? Because most,
yeah, and that like that initial understanding in no way is there. So without you sharing that, we would have no way to know that. And
yeah, that's why
and
you're right.
approved by the caseworker. When other places were putting in writing or something like that, it just seems like vague language.
I know they did that for a little bit because like there was a lot of medical kids who would turn 1 and they'd have to get out of the foster parent's bedroom when they had like heart conditions or breathing problems, to where it was a safety issue to have the child who was under the age of 2 in their own bedroom.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent of bedroom sharing. I just don't know why we're having to say it needs, if we've decided it's okay until the age of 2, which is the way it was explained to me. Why do we now have to say, well, up until 1 it's okay, and then up until 2 you need special permission? You can get special permission at any point over the age of 1, through like your pediatrician or something like that. So I'm not really sure, like if there's a medical case, again, I'm not really sure why we're putting that extra verbiage in there. Those circumstances are already covered.
So what I hear you saying, Shayla, is why are we asking for approval between 1 and 2? That's why aren't we just allowing kids to share a bedroom with an adult from 0 to 2?
Yeah, and if there's a reason, maybe it needs to be separated into 2 statements. Children between 0 and 1 may share a bedroom. Children between 1 and 2 may share a bedroom with, like, and whatever those conditions are. I just, when it was explained to me, and I had a kiddo in the home at that time when the rule changed and that was affected by the rule, nobody said anything about conditions, and it never came up with my caseworker. It only came up with my licenser. And so I think there's
The
still
question I
probably,
have too, does a caseworker even know that they should be giving permission?
right.
And sometimes caseworkers are so overwhelmed that to get, that just that simple permission, maybe a barrier in allowing, the sleeping between 0 or 1 to 2, in the bedroom with an adult. So maybe, do we explore just having kids in the bedroom from 0 to 2 and 2 and not having to have the approval of the caseworker?
I agree that could possibly be a barrier to attachment. If we're
What'd you
waiting
say-
for a
what'd you say,
caseworker.
Rachel?
I agree. If like the baby turns 1 and we're waiting for approval, it could be a barrier for attachment and early development if we have to try and move the baby out. Just 0 to 2 makes sense without the additional language. I like that.
And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the bulk of little ones who share a bedroom beyond 1 is for a medical reason or safety reason. And I'm wondering, would the healthcare provider be a better person to give that guidance rather than the caseworker?
I know for me, it was a licensing consideration. I have a 1-bedroom home and I am licensed for 0 to 2 because of the rule change.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have thought to ask, when home finders contacts me, oh, I'm gonna need additional approval at time of placement.
Right.
It's never come up.
Well, like Felix says, the goal here is, is to provide care for our kids and child safety, and getting approval, does that between 1 and 2 really tie to child safety? How do you all feel about the language with number 7? Because when I was working in the field, I know this was hard for both the department and for caregivers when you have kids who identify as transgender or fluid, and who do they share a room with?
I think it could be tricky if you have, 1 bedroom and you have another girl placed, and you have someone who's gender fluid, a girl, and then changes, their fluidity. That could be tricky as far as like then bedroom sharing. What would happen with that placement? Just with some of those things that could come up. If you have limited bedrooms per se, right? How best to support everybody in the house would be a question that would come up for me as a foster parent.
Well, I think it definitely needs to be moved as either under 8 or as a sub to 8, because it sort of comes out of context. Like gender hasn't even been addressed yet. Gender limitation.
And that was the thought of highlighting it. It used to be combined with 6, and so we moved it to 7 and made it its own. The same thing with 9. It was jumbled up in 7 or with an 8. So you feel that it should be even moved down further down? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. Now I'm trying to read them more in context to see how they logically stack.
Yeah, we were what we originally were hearing was that this section is there's a lot of important information, but it gets lost. So if you do have anyone further ideas of how to space this out, or maybe we switch some things around, please speak up.
My other question would be looking at, I guess, timeframes, or I guess I've run across youth who were labeled as sexually aggressive, and 3 years down the road, there hasn't been any incidents. They've been safe. Maybe they've been through therapy. Is that a permanent disqualifier if a youth has that title? I hate having labels on kids. If they've made progress, they've changed or shifted. or a vulnerable youth so that they would never share a bedroom. I obviously want child safety first, but I think it's also important to look at, were they sexually aggressive at age 4 or 5?
Right. And even just a minor language change, foster children that are identified, not have been, right?
Yeah, that R would be a difference, because the have been, some kids are, depending on the diagnosis, the person diagnosing that could really change the future of that child, and I don't know, make them stand out in a way that we wouldn't want them to be.
Well, maybe you could add another point to the WAC as well, and is if they have been in the past, that, you know, the therapist, the treatment plan, the caseworker, whoever, you know, acknowledges that it's okay for them to share a bedroom.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I
I think it would have to be done in a, you know, very precise safety way with a lot of experts in that field. It wouldn't be a decision made by someone who doesn't know what they're doing, you know, a foster parent who's not trained or something. Someone, whoever put the label on. I know we've had kids who were labeled sexually aggressive before, and then we had to go back to the original person to do the assessment, to do a follow-up assessment 3 years later, to see if that was still the case.
Yep.
Something like that, just so that, yeah, the kids aren't permanently labeled.
okay.
I would advocate moving these in the order of 8, 7, 6.
Okay.
As a way to like narrow, have the general understanding and then point out the exceptions after the fact.
Libby, Carla, you've been quiet. Amina, do you guys have anything you want to add here? I just want to make sure that we hear your voice if you have anything.
Now I've been thinking about this a lot actually, because I do teen sibling groups.
Oh, there you go.
And so stuff like this comes up from time to time. And right now I only have 1 bedroom because I've still got the youngest of a sibling group I had 5 years ago, and she has her own room. So I've been waiting for a new sibling group, but it's been a challenge because they gotta all be in 1 room. So it just, yeah. Most of this makes sense. The whole gender identity, it's kind of like if they're gender fluid, how do you really put them in a room with any other child?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is going to really restrict.
Your ability to provide care to a sibling group of older kids.
Yeah, but I mean, how would that work though? If I say it's a sibling group of 3 and maybe all female at birth, but one of them's gender fluid, will they let them all share a room? They're siblings.
My sense is, Felix, you can weigh in here too, Eva, is that number 9 is where situations like that, especially when the goal is to keep siblings together, is where you would have it a staffing with child welfare and with licensing division to get administrative approval to do that. So I guess the question is, for me, is how often is this happening throughout the state, or is it just like isolated events where we would staff them case by case?
I have a question about number 6, only because it came up in the group care NRM process, and just the fact that an individual who's in extended foster care and is not related to a child could be sharing a bedroom with them. So, and this must be at least 10 years of age. Just wondering what the feeling is here.
Well, I mean, how I read it, and I might be totally wrong, but number 6 kind of contradicts number 7, 8, foster children may not share bedroom with child of another gender unless all children under the age of 6. So now we have under the age of 6. And then number 6, we're talking at least 10 years old.
They shifted that because originally in the wax, once kids reached 18, they weren't allowed to share rooms with younger foster kids who were under the age of 18. So I remember when they added that, it was because then if you had a 12 and 17-year-old, the 17-year-old turns 18, then they could still share a room. They had
So
that.
at least 10 years old. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
All right.
so they want to have no more than an 8-year age range gap between the kids sharing that bedroom.
Oh,
Which is still kind of a wild and arbitrary thing, right?
It kind of is. I don't know who picked the number, right? I don't know why they picked 10. So if you have a 12, like I said, if there's every kid is over the age of 10 and their siblings that have 3 and one's 19, one's 15, and one's 13, they can all share a room. Because before when the kid turned 18, they had to get their own bedroom. And that was causing some kids who were in extended foster care to have to move.
Yeah, but this is not they're not talking siblings here. They're saying unrelated.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so.
This is if you have current placements in your home,
Right.
or you're going to get a new kid.
so Rachel, where are you getting the 8-year difference? Is that just a recall? Because it's not here in WAC.
Because when the kids turn 18 at EFC, the kids have to be at least 10. So it's between an 8 and 11 year difference. Because when the kids are 21, they're no longer on EFC.
So it's 21 for EFC?
When they age out. It was when this was written.
Is EFC going up to 25? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I'll look
Yeah,
at.
my foster daughter I have right now is in that process, and I was told it's 21. That
21.
during
Okay.
COVID, it went longer, but that it was back to 21.
Yeah, is that accurate, Felix?
I'll need to look into it more, Marge.
Yeah,
I know they just passed the bill that said kids will get benefits a little bit longer than 21, but I don't know about placement per se.
Okay.
So
what we need to make sure is, EFC, stays at the age of 21. Because if it doesn't, then I think this WAC will adjust to whatever the House bill was.
that would be my
I think you're right. It was more about benefits rather than placement.
And they felt that kids under 10 were more vulnerable, I guess. I don't know why they picked 10 as a little bit trickier to share a room with an adult, but yeah, I don't know who picked that age.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Felix, do you have any words of wisdom here for us on this one?
I'm all out on this one.
You guys ready to move on to the last WAC for this evening?
All right, Eva, my apologies again. This one has no federal requirements. The purple was supposed to highlight discussion points, so anything in purple can go black. All right, so the feedback, we received a lot of feedback, but it was more thoughts or ideas. The first one was caregivers felt that this WAC was very excessive. How are you supposed to keep all of a child's information in a file? How is it supposed to be kept updated with the correct information? And someone made the suggestion of maybe looking at this WAC and seeing what caregivers felt was the bare minimum that you should have. So that is one thought. If you keep scrolling down, please. There was also the thought that this shouldn't be really be driven by the caseworker and not necessarily the responsibility of the caregiver to manage and to keep a copy of everything. So really what we want to talk about for the rest of the night is what pieces do we really feel are necessary to have quick access to. There was also this idea of why go paper when most of our world today is electronic. Maybe 20 years ago, we couldn't sign in or log into an account and see records such as school or other records. Medical might be a little different. I don't know, maybe that's a question for this group. Can you log into a youth's medical record, or is that not something that you have access to?
That's never been allowed. It's been multi-care for like the foster care clinic in Region 5. We're not able to sign up the kids because we're not their legal guardian. So I keep getting invites to sign up for the electronic records, and I know as a foster parent I've never been allowed to, just because we're not their legal guardian technically.
So I have access to my chart for, I've had access to my chart for my kiddos, but it's restricted to upcoming appointments. It gives you no medical history.
Oh, okay.
And am I correct? You can do it for school though, so you can see grades and you can see other records of that sort, or are you also limited in that as well?
I can see grades, like because I'm the parent for the child when they're registered in school, so I can see all the current stuff, but I can't see a school history. So I don't know based off of that what school the child went to last, what the grades were last year, or even prior to coming to me. I only see current information. I also don't usually get records of some of the like mental health history, chemical dependency, behavioral things, psych reports. That's not something foster parents often get access to. We get told about them or maybe a summary, but we wouldn't have that easily. Same with IEP plans. If they're done when they're in my home or 504s, got those. But if it's done prior to coming with me, I usually have to try and pull teeth to get those.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And again, really just want to throw it back to everybody. Let's look at this WAC and let's see if we can cross anything out. I think the idea is to get this list, to minimize this list. What do you all feel like is necessary to have in your file at home? Or, I mean, to be honest, is anyone keeping this file at home? Is this something, a WAC that needs to be emphasized more?
I mean, most of the time I hand this stuff over to the caseworker. I don't necessarily keep it all here. But I do give copies of stuff that I get to the caseworker.
I don't get number N, the visitation plan, or O, the consent for medical care or surgeries, court orders.
Right.
But are you the one?
I do keep a log though. I do like I have a cheat sheet for every kid. So when they go to respite, it has all their basic information on it. Just because it's easier for me to keep it and then send it on to new caregivers. So they know bedtimes, medications, emergency contacts. Like that's just a best practice thing I've learned over the years. But that's like a 1-page Word document, so if someone's gonna take care of my kid, they know how. I used to have binders with like all their dental records, prescription pickups. Every kid had a binder when they left. I didn't do that so much anymore. Usually I keep it electronically and I keep it in a folder and then I send it to the worker when they leave. Just because I don't usually know who the new caregiver is to give it to them.
Okay.
Because we don't get to know where the kids go.
Okay. So do you all have all this information in your records? I mean, what don't you have?
I was curious about the O, written consent for providing medical care and emergency surgery is authorized by a court order. Well, all emergency surgery is going to happen regardless. They don't need a court order for that. If I bring in a child that needs emergency surgery, they're going to do it by law. They're not waiting for a court order, et cetera. So that seems kind of redundant. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just not reading that sentence correctly, but nobody, to my knowledge, I've never had a court order standing for every child that I bring with me if we had to go to the ER, you know.
Are they referring to like, I have to get court orders to get like tubes, or I had a kid who needed eye surgery. So it was within a week. It was pretty urgent, but it wasn't like that same night. I had a kid who had a complication from a tonsillectomy. We had a court order to get his tonsils out, but we didn't have one when he had to go back in from the ER because that needs to be done within an hour. So I think
Yeah, that's interesting. I suppose if it's a planned surgery, but emergency surgery, that term makes it sound like, well, no one's waiting for a court order. You know, they're just getting it done. The doctor will take them regardless.
So maybe we need to say a planned surgery or scheduled surgery.
Well, I guess my question to you all also would be, is that not would that be DCYF's responsibility to get that information? Or do we feel like it's up to the caregiver to keep track of that record?
Yeah, I am more concerned about what's the purpose of the caregiver having this information? Like when we look at what you're required to maintain, why do you need it would be the driving factor for whose responsibility is to maintain it. Like, who needs to know about the child's visitation plan? Why is it important for you to have that like easy access written down? Who's asking about that other than the case, like the people already involved in the case that already created the plan or have more access and knowledge than you do?
So what I hear, so maybe the visitation plan should be taken out of this.
Yeah, I've never had a plan like written down somewhere. It's always just, this is what we're doing this week, or
Yeah, that's also true. And I've only had littles and it hasn't really come up. So are people doing an inventory of the child's belongings, and what does that mean?
I do, but I mostly take teens. So I take older kids a lot. And a lot of times, like I do BRS teens who come with a lot of stuff, and they kind of have a history of stuff disappearing from placements. So they're very attached to their belongings. So we do an inventory at the beginning and then one at the end, so that they can't say, oh, I came with 5 gold necklaces. When they go to leave and that they disappeared, right? It kind of protects, and I tell them it protects them so that they have all the stuff that we look at when they come, all that stuff goes with them. So then that protects me from taking their stuff. So I say it protects them and it protects me. But I've had parents do that too, where they accuse me of stealing something from a young kid. Bio parent said, oh, the child came with these items and you took them. And so the inventory kind of saved me a little bit because I could show on day 1 they didn't have those items.
I also learned from somebody along the way, I take a picture, I lay the clothes out, I take a photograph of it. And I take a photograph, I line up their shoes. I have never had a kid come with more than anything I could get in 2 or 3 photographs. To be honest, it's not like they've shown up with, 47 items. Usually it'll fit on my dining room table folded, and I take a photograph, and then there's no question as to whether or not they're,
So you guys
rainbow
aren't
horse.
updating it during their stay with you, because I'm thinking more about how like gifts that are bought for the child belong to the child. Are you updating their inventory each time? That seems like a lot to do. I know for me, and the amount of things that I buy for a child in care and that go with them when they leave me, that would be a lot to manage. But if we are talking about like more of a protective measure, for making sure that you're protecting yourself. I don't even know if it belongs here, but you're just doing it in your own interest.
I've done it.
Yeah, I
I
do it.
first-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just do it first day and last day. And I also take a picture usually of like the 5 suitcases, 4 bags, 2 totes or whatever, just to show that a lot of stuff went with them. But some of my kids, the teens who've been in care for years, will come with an entire room full of stuff.
Right.
There's 110 pairs of underwear and 50 shirts, and like they stockpile stuff sometimes. And so usually I'll just be like 40 plus shirts. I don't go exactly, just a kind of thing, because I do buy them things. And so when they leave, they always have more than when they come. I don't track toys so much. It's mostly like jewelry, electronics, really expensive shoes, stuff that's really important to them.
Yeah, these things all make sense, but they also seem like best judgment and not a rule here.
Right. So what I hear you saying is, does it need to be in the WAC? It sounds like it's a practice for individual homes, which is great, but do we have to make it a rule?
Well, what I can tell you, from the group care negotiations and the lived experience youth, this was a very hot topic, and it has been even expanded more in the group care WAC about the inventory, and it does include, more inventory than just the simple line anymore. So my understanding is that lived experience will also be in these negotiations, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's gonna come up here, that it's a pretty hot topic, and they want those inventories done and ongoing, so that when they do acquire more things, that those things are recorded. So just
Okay.
something to think about.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Eva. Carla, what do you take older kids? What do you do?
Well, I mean, I have done inventories. Do I keep them updated? No, my kiddo I have now has been with me for 5 years. I do long term, so my kids are usually with me for quite a while. They usually come with a backpack, maybe, and a bag of whatever they grabbed as they were getting pulled from their homes or from school. So they didn't have much when they came. When they leave, they usually have multiple suitcases and stuff, because I do a lot for my kiddos, but they're usually with me long term. I mean, so we're talking usually over a year. Sometimes, like the kiddo I got now, she's going on 5 years.
Okay.
So, they spend Christmases and birthdays, and yeah, I have to say that I don't have time to document every little thing that they're given. And my family tends to spoil kids, and they always have a lot. So I don't know. I think it really depends on the situation. I understand it with group homes, that makes sense. But it may not make sense for some situations. I don't know.
Definitely one of
That's
those
kind of
tricky
a
things.
tough
Yeah.
one. I think it's really gonna be, it really should be pretty individualized.
And I think like Eva said, it'll be interesting in the foster care negotiations with our youth with lived experience, what they feel about this as placement in foster home rather than a group care facility.
What if you had some kind of language, kind of listening to the one gal talking electronics and all that? I've never had anybody that came with that. What if they're somehow put the language in with items, with a dollar value of $50 or more to be inventoried? Then you're talking the gold chains and those more specific things, instead of having to say 17 pairs of blue jeans and 13 white shirts. If they found kind of a dollar item, inventory the higher dollar item things, and then your inventory is going to be a lot less, I would think. I'd rather do that than take pictures of 6 shoes and 17 shirts and 50 pairs of jeans, especially when they're long term, because they are always going to leave with more than they came with. especially through holidays and birthdays and school clothes shopping. But what if it was a dollar amount, anything over a certain amount, and that got inventoried? So if they do show up with, their grandma's diamond ring, you take a photo. I would want that just for my own safety in my house, insured, or whatever. Somebody's coming in with a dollar amount. That's a big burden on me. What if she loses that, or he loses, an heirloom? Just record that, and then you're able to report it immediately to the caseworker that, Kelly lost her grandma's ring, but here's a picture of it, and this is what happened, yada, yada, yada. Not like you can really do anything about it, but at least you're showing Kelly that you're proactive, and Kelly understands, oh, well, this is important. She's going to pay attention and make sure that, whatever, my ring doesn't disappear. I don't know. I think so many times we worry about us, but, how are these kids feeling when it's their one and only thing left connected to their family? Show them that this means something to me too, Kelly. I understand that's your grandma's ring and it's really important, and let's be really careful. Give them some value to what they're holding on so dearly to.
I like that idea. It can be tricky for foster kids. Sometimes I'll get a new teen who has been in a group home or different places, so they haven't seen their items for a year or two. So they come to my house, the worker is all excited, drops them off, gets their stuff from the office, clears it out, and we go through stuff, and it's like it takes us all night, and some of it they haven't seen for 2 years, and it reminds them of this bad memory. And so it can be really tricky at first to go through the stuff with kids when you're first meeting them to get that inventory. I know my agency, we have to do it that I'm licensed through. We do it within 72 hours. So within the first day or two, it has to be done. And you're trying to build this relationship with this child. And for me, they're typically runners or, high risk kids. And it's like, okay, show me everything you own. And it can feel a little invasive, I feel like sometimes. I understand the importance of it for sure. And like I said, the other flip side, right, of protecting everybody and the youth and time. I just worry sometimes that it can be not as productive as I would want my first week with them to be.
More invasive than it is therapeutic.
Yeah, that's why I like the money thing. One of my kids came with like 5 cell phones and 2 tablets, and so it makes sense to track some of the bigger things, but not the 50 pairs of socks.
Deborah, I love your comment about, being hard for caregivers, but really how does it make the kids feel? I mean, that is something that, we are going to be threading through this whole NRM. It's just, meeting the best interest of our kids and making them feel like they're in a home. And if you're constantly having to do inventory, I mean, does that make them feel like they're part of the household? I mean, I wouldn't feel like that. So
no, that's what they do in jail. They inventory all your items, and then when you get out, and it shouldn't feel like that,
yeah,
that they value their items and we value their items as well. Not like, oh, those are gross jeans. You know what? There's a reason they have those jeans. Let them decide when to get rid of them, just letting them have some value and some deciding for what happens to their stuff. Do you want me to put this in my safe and keep it safe? Or do you want to keep it with you? Give them the choice. I'm not talking a 6-year-old, but kids when they're older, they've had no choice in their life, and they had no choice that they were taken away from wherever they were prior. Give them the courtesy of being a human being, and just see what they have to say about it. They might actually have an opinion. It might be kind of an interesting one. But then if they feel valued, then, and that their opinion matters, I think you'd get a lot more out of them.
yeah.
I love the soft.
Go ahead.
I love the soft side of that, and you're right, and that's where like being a good caregiver comes into play. But when we're putting this in a whack, I come from a logistician background, military inventory, property book manager. All this screams to me is, what is the process? What does it actually mean? How do you update it? What are the requirements? It just seems so open to interpretation, which then makes me think, does it belong in the WAC? Like, how do we protect our kiddos and in a way that actually has meaning in the WAC?
Yeah.
Or does it belong there?
Right, and I think as we get into negotiations, that is something that we will always balance out and talk about and weave throughout each WAC as we review it.
Yeah, I also want to add, what does that group feel about that language? Should it be left as is for flexibility for the caregiver, or does this group feel like it should be a specific standard?
I don't want to have it every month you do the inventory. Because there's sometimes you buy more for a month and sometimes you buy less. I know one of the agencies I was licensed through before, you had to track at the every beginning of every month, I had to give them a form of what I bought for the kid that month. And it was a pain in the rear because I don't remember what I spent on them. I just buy it because they're my kid. So I've had to do that monthly and it was really not a great feeling. So I worry about having precise language in here and holding foster parents to another rule when we already have so many.
I agree, which is part of my problem with having it in there at all. I wonder if there's another way that we can talk about it. Or does it belong in the realm of the foster parent at all? Does it belong with the department?
I think the historical basis to this, as we all know, is kids will land with stuff and they don't get it back. And I think Felix, Eva, you could probably say this, listening to the youth lived experience, that's what's happened to them. And like, that's all they have. And so we have caregivers here who, that's nothing that you would ever do, but that this is where the youth, this has been their experience. Now, I'll be very interested to hear, what was your experience in foster care versus, a group care facility in your belongings. So I think let's this is great discussion. I think we will have lots of discussion about this when we start our negotiations in October. Does anybody else have something they want to close with any of these WACs before we kind of wrap? Where did an hour and a half go? Wow, this has been fast. Before we wrap up tonight.
I just wanted to say one more thing on the
Yes,
inventory piece. So, like I said, I've had my my daughter's been with me now for over it'll be 6 years, I think, in 5 years in October. And I can tell you right now, she probably has one or two things from when she first came to me, but she doesn't have most of the stuff that she brought with her because it's been 5 years.
Yep.
So I think that if it's going to be in the WACs, it needs to have some swag to it so that it makes sense. Keeping a constant updated inventory just does not seem realistic. Like I said, short-term group homes, that kind of thing, I think it makes more sense. But there was somebody else on here that does teens too and buys a lot of stuff for their kiddos too, and I'm the same way. So the thought of having to always write that down, I can be honest and say that probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that kind of time. I work full time plus take care of the kiddos in a farm. So yeah.
Did you say kiddos in a barn?
Kiddos and my farm.
Oh, you're you are a busy girl. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's unreasonable just to keep track of what they came with, period. Because if it's a short term and they go right back to mom in 2 months and she wants to know where the bunny went, well, the bunny never came. But obviously, you make such great points with these long-term kids. And I've never been asked to keep a monthly update. I would have been out of here years ago if I had to do an update monthly. Um, as to their personal inventory. But I think, you know, just doing the intake, they come and within a couple of days you take inventory of what they've got. And then it's fluid from there. Stuff's
Yeah.
going to come and go, especially over time.
Well, and this WAC doesn't say monthly, it just says inventory. And so Shayla put in the chat, you know, maybe initial inventory, you know, when they're placed into the home. All right, guys, I want to get, some of you are new and I just wanted to make sure that we have a slide deck, but you also can get all this information in going to our website. Anna, would you drop that in the chat for me, please? And if you look at orientation, it walks you through what NRM is, why we're doing this, why we're looking at the WACs, what the goals are. And then we've recorded most of our sessions, and you can go back and listen to the recordings of the other WAC that we've discussed. So we're in our 5th week. We will carry through July, and then we're done. So what I wanted to also ask you all is, for those of you especially who have been here repeatedly, or you know have a vast wealth of information, or if you've only been licensed for a little while, is we really need caregivers who want to step forward and be part of the negotiations that begin in November. And what we're asking for is 2 representatives of caregivers licensed through the state through a CPA. We're looking to try to get 2 per region. I have had a few volunteer, but right now I think we're sitting at 5, 6, which is not enough to make the NRM project be really, you know, to flourish and really get some really good changes with our foster care WAC. So I'm putting that out there. You all can email me directly if you're interested, or you can drop it here in the chat, or if you want to think about it. If you want to know more about the responsibilities, I can email you, you know, what we're looking for as far as what your responsibilities would be for as a rep beginning in October. So that is my plug for getting some of you to carry through. These are such good conversations and they're so rich. And in the negotiations, it is where really we put them into play and we make changes. Eva, Felix, do you have anything to add there?
Hey, Marge, is the email that you just put in the chat that Anna did, is that the email to reach out to you at?
Yeah, or you can reach out to me at my you know, direct email. But yes, we monitor the foster care NRM box and but Rachel, you know, my email hasn't changed for you.
Thanks.
You know, transparency, I was Rachel's regional licensor, I think. Yes.
Yeah,
So-
I've been licensed about 10 years. I worked with you professionally and I worked with you personally, actually.
Yes, you did. Yes, you have. Anyway, so there's my email address. Felix, Eva, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
No, just thank you all for being here and adding your voice.
Yes, thank you. This has been our best attended Tuesday night. Maybe it needs to get hotter more often. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Shayla, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shayla. Bye, Rachel. Or do
Thank
you have
you.
something to say? Thank you, Amina.